Hello, everyone. It's Robbie here. This is episode 12 of Miscellaneous Candor, frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. This week, we're talking about how you can detect lies from a spy, ironically, and also, too, delving into some pretty impactful changes to our overall society that have to do with AI. And for a sneak peek, robots. It's just Steven and I. Yes, you heard what I said? Steven and I this week. I think he's actually catching on to being this host on a permanent basis, but you know, we'll see. I think next week we'll have another guest, but thanks for joining. Sit back and listen. Again, subscribe. Follow us, and please leave us some reviews. We want to know what you think. Oh, and this week, we added some clips. Let us know what you think. All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. We're back. It's Robbie and
Steven Kennedy at your service, board certified atheist, here to lighten your day.
oh, Steven, what a wonderful intro.
Lighten your
So,
day and lighten your way.
hi, everyone. We're back. Here we are. Miscellaneous Candor, frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. Episode 12, everyone. So glad to be back. Last week, we provided you with two episodes, one to highlight our 10th episode. So glad that we got there. And then we had a part 210, but it really was number 11. Hope you enjoyed those. Really excited about today. Again, subscribe. Please provide us with feedback. And okay, we're going to start. So, jumping in, podcast reviews. Okay, so I listened to one new podcast again. I know we talked about the Disney travel podcast last time,
Yeah.
but I listened to this podcast, Stephen, called Women of Impact.
Mm-hmm.
And she just talks about women's issues. Um, and I will put the podcast in with the podcast host because I am forgetting her name. But I ran across this
Sounds very
episode.
impactful.
You're so smart. Ha ha ha. I ran across this episode with this guy. His name is Andrew Bustamante, and he has this business called Everyday Spy, and they provide services a lot to high performing sales teams to give them the tools to be better performers. And he's an ex CIA agent. He has people who are ex Navy SEALs and all of that. So they actually train them and give them ways and tools to use the same type of tactics and strategies that the CIA and the SEALs do.
That's
Um,
amazing.
right? To a certain
That's
degree.
what a service. That's a really great. That's a great thing
I
because
thought so
I
too.
find that there are disproportionately a large amount of naive women out there that are taken advantage of. So that's a good thing.
No, this is his service.
Not to be sexist, but
Yes, of course, not to be sexist, but you're being sexist. Okay, so even though you dropped that bomb, he does this for all sales teams. He was just on this particular podcast talking about how you can tell if someone lies in your
Mm.
relationship.
Oh, this is for sales teams. Okay, got it.
Yes, his service is for sales teams, but on this podcast, he was talking about people who lie and how you can detect that. So, how women essentially, her Women of Impact podcast, can detect if someone's lying. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship, like how to detect if a man is lying. Yeah, that could be it, but that wasn't the point. The point is just in general, how can you detect if someone's lying to you?
Mm.
So, that being said, I'm going to play a clip of one of the things that he says that I thought was pretty interesting.
So when you've been with somebody for a while, You know what they look like over time. You know what consistent looks like for them. So now what you're looking for is effort. If you see a change in their consistency, especially a change in a short period of time, and you see what looks like effort, huge red flag that what you're dealing with now is somebody who's becoming more dishonest with you, or possibly somebody who's been dishonest from the beginning, but you weren't aware of the signs yet because you didn't have enough time to capture what we call a baseline of behavior.
So I thought that was really interesting. What do you think
Mhm.
about that, Stephen?
I think. Well, here's the thing. First of all, in what context are you speaking about? Are you speaking about a relationship between man and woman?
No, I mean, he's not just talking about a relationship between man and a woman. He's talking about any type of relationship. It could be a work relationship. It could be like with your boss. It could be with, yes, a romantic relationship. It could be a friendship over time. It could be like any of the relationships that you have in your life. How can you identify if someone's lying? And I will say
Yeah.
this. He talked about how when he was in the CIA, that they always said everyone lies, which is true. Like even the
Yeah.
most honest people lie. Like if let's say somebody calls you and you're like, "Oh, hey girl, what's up? What you doing?" And you might say, I'm busy right now, but maybe you're not busy. Maybe you're just tired, but it's your friend, so you don't want to tell them that you're tired, right? So those types of things.
Yeah.
Versus like a lie when you say, I'm going to the gym, but you're really going to like hang out with somebody else. If you're,
Yeah.
first, let's say you're in a relationship, right? And they have different categorizations of those lies and different profiles of the type of people who would tell certain lies at what levels, which I thought was pretty
Mhm.
interesting too. And he goes into that. So,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I think I like the way he processed it and broke it down. From my perspective, I find myself to be very very good at understanding personalities, understanding people. And you know that just as a baseline, I dislike human beings, right? So I am going into relationships, whether it's work or friendship or relationship, I'm always very careful in learning who that person is and really getting in deep. So I didn't, in my head, I don't break it down like he just broke it down, which is great for people that need more guidance. Me, I get to know a person where at a level where I can tell just naturally if they're lying to me or if they're being honest with me. But yeah, it's yeah, I agree.
When you say you can tell naturally, do you mean like it's just a feeling that you get?
No, it's basically what he just explained, but without breaking it down into a process. So I would get to know someone to a point where I can understand their behavioral changes, their communication patterns, how is everything changing. And like I said, because I naturally don't like humans, I naturally don't trust humans. I think I just do it as a natural part of getting to know someone, which a lot of people would not do because they like human beings.
I wish people could see my face, even though this is an audio podcast. Um,
But you know what I'm saying, because I'm just naturally averse to humans. I take my time in really getting to know who they are, digging deep without seeming like I am doing that. But I monitor, I analyze their body language, their speech patterns, everything about their behavioral patterns, everything. um I tend to think of myself as a unofficial psychologist.
That's interesting that you say that. I mean, he talked a little bit too about like analyzing body language, and that doesn't come in, at least it comes in, but it didn't come in the way I thought it would. He also talks about how a polygraph test in this particular, it was a two-part series, so there's two webcasts if you do end up listening to it. He talks about how polygraph tests do not actually measure if you're lying or not. It just measures your sensitivity to subjects.
Yes,
And
yes.
I didn't know that.
So, and that's how some people can pass these polygraph tests, because
Yes.
it's about how do they react rather than are they actually telling the truth.
Yes. And I I mean, I knew it measured certain things about how you reacted, but I thought that because of that, those were quote unquote tells of lying. But evidently they're not. And there are ways that you can pass them, just like being sensitive to everything, he was saying. That's a way you could pass a polygraph. I was like, oh
Oh,
my God.
interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yes, that's on there. So he talks about that. So, okay. Then, of course, because this is going to be ongoing, and obviously, these are allegations, but he also talked about the whole lying construct of the Diddy situation. So I got to play this too because I thought this was
Let's hear it.
really, really interesting.
The Diddy story is a fantastic example because some people kept the lie because they were scared. They had seen the abuse, they had seen the violence, and they didn't want to be next on the list. Some people kept the lie because they didn't want to lose their job. They had a fantastic job in a big company. They were making tons of money. The sky was the limit, so they kept the secret because they wanted to protect their job. Some people kept the lie because they wanted an opportunity to be at the right hand side of Diddy, to be the next featured artist, to be the next, Billboard top hit, right? So they kept the lie because they wanted the opportunity. The lie was the advantage they all had, and they all kept it secret because it was feeding an advantage that they needed.
That right there was so interesting to me. They all kept the lie because it was feeding an advantage that they needed. And it just spoke to not just, this whole craziness that is the whole Diddy situation, but just other situations that people can have in their lives
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
know that things. What were you going to say?
I said, yeah, there's so many factors that play into how people react, to how they um, decide what to, come out with and what they decide to keep quiet. I have an opinion on this, and I'm pretty sure you're not gonna like it, Robbie, based on who you are.
Okay, well, let me finish my point and then you can just say what. I'll be prepared. I'm going to brace myself. So I just thought that it was really interesting, particularly like, you know, they put him for RICO charges. And so it's almost like he was talking about that in the sense of it, how everybody kept this lie because they were getting their own advantage.
Yeah.
So the whole RICO statute is like, this criminal organization. So even though people may have been in that organization and for all intensive purposes were good people, I know how you think about people, but let's, for all intensive purpose, those advantages benefited them and as such allayed themselves to the criminal organization. I could see how that could be a through line for an argument on the prosecution side. But that just also too shows, what people will do and what people won't do. And I think the thing that gets to me is the people who would speak up or the people who left because they didn't think it was right. Those people and the integrity and the character that they have, independent of all of the advantages that they could gain, those are some of the people who I would want to know and who I would want to talk to. So, what were you
Mhm.
going to say?
Well, first, a couple things. First of all, there's a lot of gray area here, right? There are a lot of people that were bystanders or even participants that may not have felt that there was something that was wrong or illegal, right? Uh, so in many circumstances, they were not wrong or illegal. Let's not forget there were victims, but there were also willing participants. It seems like the people that were bystanders or participants, that were friends of Diddy's, they're being villainized, right? What about the people that willingly participated in these activities, that were of legal age, and they said, you know what, I want access to what Diddy can get me. I want to have a chance at fame and money, so I'm going to do whatever it takes, uh, and they willingly, knowing what they're getting into, decided to do certain things. And now afterwards, after they got the fame, it's much later. Or if they didn't get what they wanted, those people are now coming and saying, "Oh well, what Diddy did was illegal and immoral, and he needs to be brought to justice." So there's so many different angles to look at this. I just don't. I do agree that Diddy is definitely guilty of doing things that he should not have been doing. But at the same time, there's a lot on the other side as well. A lot of people that a lot of adults that willingly chose to do things. I cannot say that I have sympathy for Cassie Ventura. She was getting a monthly stipend to be his sex slave. She chose that.
So here's the thing about Cassie, and we talked about this earlier on when you first came into the
Yeah.
show. So I don't know if you remember this. I know that you say that, and here's my thing. I don't think that if he was having orgies and everybody in the orgy was wanted to do it, then I agree with you. I think if they all had consent and this is what they wanted to do and they wanted to participate in the orgy and they thought that if they participated in the orgy it would help and benefit them and they did it and there was nothing and they did it of their own free will, then yeah, I think that was fine. What I don't think is okay is the drugging.
Yes, obviously.
Okay, I don't think because if you put drugs in a bottle of Ciroc or a bottle of champagne and you give it to people and they don't know, they have
Right.
no idea that you've done this, and
Yeah.
then you put them in a situation where they are part of this orgy that maybe someone else is consenting to, but the person who drank that bottle of drugged champagne is not consenting to, then that is a criminal act.
100% agree with you. Yes.
And I think that there were things that were happening where that was the case with him. There were some people who were good with it, and there were some people who were not.
Yeah.
The problem is with the people who were not and the people who were there, whether they knew it was happening or not, there are, what do they call, accessory by the fact or something like that? They're
Mm.
involved in it. But he's the person that did it. And also, too, the people who put the drugs in the bottles, they're also too accountable.
Yeah.
They were working for him because
Yeah.
of what Bustamante just said about they were given advantage. They were getting paid. They were
Hmm.
this thing. So they just looked at this as quote unquote the way he likes to party. I'm making him happy. I'm doing this. But
Hmm.
who is he giving these drugged bottles, this situation to? Right?
Yeah.
That's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So that's my point, and you agree with me. Now to
I
the
agree.
Cassie point, I want to make my Cassie point.
I agree.
I
We
appreciate
agree.
that we
Surprisingly, we agree on something.
surprisingly agree. We don't agree on Cassie. You're absolutely right. Because here's the thing about Cassie, and I've heard this before. She agreed to be his sex slave.
Yeah.
I don't think that she agreed to be his sex slave. I think what happened was in the beginning, she was with someone else. He was very attracted to her. She got into this quote unquote 10 album deal, which fucking is crazy anyway. I mean, who gets a 10 album deal and thinks that that's going to be legit? But at the time, he was Diddy, it was Bad Boy, it was like, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity for me, right? And he pursued her. He pursued her for over a year. This is documented by it's in the allegation thing that she put out there. It's documented by other people who saw all of this stuff. She was like, no, 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 no. But then and I think a lot of women do this, pretty women who want to do things, who say like, well, maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe I'll give him a chance and see what happens. But
And when she
and
she
when
gave him a
she said
chance when he flashed that monthly stipend. Yeah.
no, but here's the thing. Abusers always start off nice. They always start off nice.
Mhm.
Like this is a part of understanding domestic abuse and violence within someone's relationship. How people get start in the cycle is because the person showed this great part of themselves and then they abuse the person. So the person forgives them
Yeah.
because they're remembering
Yeah.
that great part.
Yes.
They're remembering that good sort of exterior that
Yes.
they presented. And I think that she had that 10 to 15 fold. Now, what happens is,
Can I just say something right here?
no, I'm not done yet. And then
Oh,
you can
sorry.
say, I really want to get this out. I
Sure.
really want to make sure that I get all the points out on this one. I didn't mean to just cut you off.
I'm hurt.
Oh, you're
I'm
fine.
bleeding. I'm bleeding, Robbie.
You're fine. Okay, so she has this relationship. There's violence, right? She does let's say, before I understood, she took some drugs from him, but it wasn't violence. It was like they were just, quote unquote partying, because that's what people do. People take drugs, they party, blah blah blah, right? People have certain moral ideas about that, but that we're not talking about that. So this is again pulling her into this lifestyle, right? She might like the drugs, she might like this. Then he gets violent, he beats her, and I'm not done.
Okay.
He, he beats her. He beats her, right? He
Okay.
beats her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, I'm in this. I got this album deal. He hit me, beat me. Mm, maybe it was just one time. Because
Mhm.
that's what happens. Maybe it's just one time. So she keeps going. She thinks this is just what it is. But then she starts to see what his lifestyle is. Because here's the thing with abusers. Once they do show you that other side, then there's other things that come up. So she starts to see what he does to other people, how he treats other people. He shows her that, because why? He showed her the violent part of him. So she knows who I am. So she can see who I am when I disrespect other people, when I treat other people
Mhm.
like this. Again, this goes to, were they getting a lot of money from him? She's seeing him do all this stuff to other people, right? Threatening,
Mhm.
treat them like shit, disrespecting them, all that stuff, and they keep coming back. She's thinking, well, everyone else is coming. I'm not in her brain, but I'm just again looking at this from abuse, understanding like the whole abuse cycle of it. Well, if I, maybe he won't be that bad if I'm nice, right? Maybe it won't get that bad.
Mhm.
And then again, he probably apologized. He probably sent her flowers. He brought her
Mhm.
extra gifts to make up for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, he apologized. He did this. And then they go through a period where he's nice. Now she's in the relationship. He's cool. He's this. He's that. And then it happens again.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about this abuse stuff. I think people sometimes, particularly the people that say she signed up for this, think that she signed up and that he was literally beating her every single day. And the way that they put it out there, it's like he was just beating on people, just every day. It was like beat, 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 this. The only thing I think he did every day was drugs. I don't think he beat her every day.
Yeah.
But I do think he beat her enough for where they built this relationship, right? And then she would cheat, he would cheat, then they come back together, and it was super toxic.
Do you think that the monthly stipend had anything to do with her coming back and willing to take a beating, and the album deal? Do you think that was any motivation for her saying, "Well, the money that I'm going to get out of this outweighs, the abuse. Maybe I'll just stay in and get abused, and I'll keep taking the money."
Okay, I think that mentality of her saying to herself, I'm just going to stay here and get abused and take the money, is like she's being manipulative, and she's like, oh, I'm this is just a part, like I'm this, this is
I,
just a part of it, blah blah blah.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
I don't
so.
think that was her being manipulated. What I think is it was a financial transaction. It was a relationship
I
that was
don't think
based.
so. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm saying I think it was a financially based relationship. It was a transaction, a money transaction. And
I don't
so
think so. Even though his lawyer said, I didn't mean to cut you off, but even his lawyer on that crazy Tubi thing said he was in love with her. They were in love with each other. I think they had deep feelings for each other. I
while
think
he
there
was
was a lot.
bringing like
Yes,
75 other girls a week,
yes.
would you call that love? I don't know.
No, I'm not saying I would call it love. I'm saying that they felt like they were in love with each other.
I don't think.
That's awful.
I don't agree with that. I don't think
No,
he
it's
definitely was not in love with her. He just likes to fuck around, right? Uh, and he's, he'll do whatever it takes to get, to get where what he wants, who he wants. Um, and she was looking at it as a financial transaction. That's my perspective.
I don't agree with that because there were times when, and this was documented, she did try to leave, and he blew up. Like when they had a break, right? She was still in the contract. She was seeing that Kid Cudi dude, and he blew up the car because he got jealous. So then it becomes, well, let me just stay with this person so I can be alive. Because is he going to blow up the car that he
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
to me? Like you go down these roads, and then too the whole dynamic of being in a relationship with a man and believing that a man is going to take care of you, right? Like if you saw that growing up, both her parents were together. If she saw that growing up, if she thought that was her ideal situation, if she believed that, if there clearly were feelings there, whether their feelings are healthy that's another conversation. That's
Okay.
another conversation. I hear what you're saying, but I just don't think that she was that diabolical. I think it's interesting and I've mainly heard this from men, but that men think that she was that diabolical about it. To where
I just think it
it
was a financial
was
transaction, which happens all the time. It's not unusual. It happens all the time. I don't say she was about diabolical. I don't think she was taking advantage of him at all. They just both had a financial agreement.
even if I give you that, it's still against the law for him to beat her the way he did
Yeah,
multiple times.
absolutely, it is. Um,
So
and
I can't. I'm not gonna. I don't. This. I don't like the victim blaming thing. I
yeah.
don't. She still that video. I don't care if she
Oh, it's
what
horrible, horrible.
that video was, and she was trying to get away.
Yeah.
If she did not, independent of the monthly stipends, there were periods I understood where she tried to go to her parents' house, where she tried to this, and he would find her.
Hmm.
And why? I mean, not forget that this is a man who still has hundreds of millions of dollars. At
Hmm.
one point, he was on record as being a billionaire. And I'm going to say this too. If he had shot off shotguns with serial numbers shot off, do you think that he didn't have houses with cash that was
Yeah.
unrecognized or
Of
unreported?
course, of course.
With
Yeah.
so he could still be a billionaire, but just not on paper.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Right. Right. Of course.
And someone who has all of that money, money rules this country, right? So
Yeah.
you have money, then you have power. So I just don't. Then she got addicted to drugs with him. She would get into it. It was
Hmm.
good sometimes, then it wasn't. I mean, this is just like a really toxic, abusive relationship on steroids because of the money and the power and the fame around it. I cannot. We're gonna disagree to disagree that she
You know,
was.
just taking a step back and tying in some conversations. If every single one of these abused women did a postmortem and they looked back at the beginning of the relationship, they would find that the guy, the abuser, was extraordinarily kind and giving and loving, like over the top to reel them in. And to start that cycle where they created this, like you were saying, they created this persona, this image of themselves that they're incredibly loving and sweet and do these insanely wonderful things for the girl. And then they go and they abuse the woman. And then the woman holds on because she's still in hope that he's that amazing person. He just had a bad spot, but he's
Yeah,
actually this amazing person that she showed me at the beginning, right? So it's a very calculated plan that they have, these abusers.
they do. But here's my thing too. Like I feel like you're making my point for me, which is very
I am,
weird.
I am. This is I'm very disappointed in myself.
Okay,
I don't know what I'm doing here.
okay, we'll get on to something else. Okay, so let's switch
Look
topics.
what you're making me do. You're making me agree with you, Rob. I hate it when it happens. God. I'm so disappointed in myself. Who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. This
You know who you
oh,
are. You know who you are. You know who you are. You do. You do. And then we don't know too, even if her parents were together. She's talking about, we don't know if she came from a
right,
relationship
right,
who's
absolutely.
seeing that.
I agree.
But that's normal.
Yeah,
Like there's
you're right.
all kinds of things
You're
that
right.
we
There's so many
just
factors.
don't know.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So I mean, that's my whole thing about
I
this.
still don't like her.
Okay, well, that's a different conversation. You
I,
don't
I
like
I
her.
still think a very big factor in this whole thing was the financial arrangement.
I'm not, did you hear me discount that though?
No, no.
I'm not discounting that. I'm not saying that she didn't stay with him because of that, because he was her only lifeline for livelihood. But again, that's another tenet of the abuse. That's another way to have power over her. That's
Mm,
another way to keep her in spite of being abused, because then it becomes, he is funding my life. Where am I going to go? How
yeah.
am I going to make my money? He has all my bank accounts. Everything's in his name. Everything's in this. Blah blah. Blah. Where am I gonna go? Some
This is
people.
I mean, this is why are there so many dumb people in this world? I just can't. I mean, I can't take care of myself. I have to rely on some man to take care of me. No, go be your own person, I
But this was a different time too. This wasn't 2024 that we're talking about, right? This was like 1999, 2000s. Things were different.
all right. All right. I have some more to say on that, but we can move to the next topic.
Okay, let's move to the next topic. Okay, guys, I know we're talking a lot about Diddy's face, so let's just move to the next topic. We did have another clip about him, but we're going to move to the next topic and we'll deal with that next week because it can wait and it's hilarious.
There's plenty of conversation to be had on this topic.
Because this is going to go on forever.
This is.
So the other podcast I listened to was Brilliant Idiots. It was good too. And then of course, I listened to Joe Rogan with these two doctors who are not, well, one was an ex lobbyist and one was an ex doctor. And it was really interesting. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time with this. I know people are kind of like, why do you listen to Joe Rogan? I listen to Joe Rogan because I feel like, well, one, he has 10 million freaking downloads.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 10 million people that are listening to him at any given time. That's
Mm-hmm.
baseline. Who knows? It goes up and down, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's really kind of what that's like a tenth um or so, maybe a little less, but or so of the country, right? Like 10 million people is a lot.
Yeah.
That's not that many people listen to, even Fox only has like 2 to 3 million
Yeah.
people. So 10 million is a lot. Also too, I thought it was interesting about the health conversation that they were talking about. And they were just talking about the health system, about how it's built on people being sick so they can be, medically treated, and how just, they were talking about a lot of the things that I actually believe in around hard nutrition, working out, um, and how those things can really stave off a lot of things, and just how things have changed over time in terms of ingredients in food. There's like 400 ingredients that are acceptable in Europe, but there's 10,000 ingredients that are acceptable in America.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
these things that we eat, they're just like not even real. Even things like grass-fed beef, you
Yeah.
want to make sure it's grass-fed and pasture, because grass-fed could just be all the cows in this fucking room. I'm sorry, I'm cursing so much, and them just getting like just grass at them. Now that's better than other, but still, it's not the same as them roaming around. You think they're roaming around the pasture, eating grass, blah, blah, blah. But no, that's not necessarily the case. There's some mechanics behind that. So I thought the episode was really good. I
Yeah.
did have an issue, though, with it.
I'm sorry.
Because, no, I said I did have an issue with it, and we can talk about it more next week. We can talk about it more next week because I do want to get to the AI piece.
Yeah. Really, really quickly though, I think it is. I don't. There are a lot of conspiracy theories, right? There's, you know, uh, keeping people unhealthy, so the hospitals and the doctors make money. I think it's more about. I don't agree with that aspect, that perspective. I do think it's about companies, manufacture the food companies, getting more greedy to make money. So they are getting all these preservatives they're putting in all these preservatives, all these different cheaper ingredients, all these colorful things to make it look attractive, so they can make more money. Um, and if I was actually looking at something online just recently where someone was comparing the ingredients for the same item back 20 years ago compared to versus now, and there were just so many more ingredients in today's day compared to the same item 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So it's I really think it's about corporate greed, and then obviously that bleeds over into more money generated for the healthcare system.
it's true. And I felt like many of the things that they were talking about were on point. And I think that they are looked at as quote unquote the crazies because they used to be like as I said, she used to be Callie Means and Casey Means, MD. And Casey was a former and she's a Stanford trained physician too, by the way. And she has like another health type of service for wellness that she's spun up to help people. And I do think that there is a lot of that, the corporate geek part. The pharma, I think is interesting about how they talked about how so many people in the FDA end up going to work for big pharma, how big pharma and things around diabetes are tied together. There were just all of these
Mhm.
different things that they were talking about that are legitimate connections. And I thought that was interesting. What I didn't like was the fact that they felt now they're two conservatives. They're going to vote for Trump. And I'm fine with that. They're going to vote for Trump. But I feel like even though they threw in the bipartisan thing sometimes, they're heavily Trump supporters. And while I'm fine with that, like I mean, if you are, you are. What I didn't like,
Really? Are you fine with that? I don't think you're fine with that. I'm not fine with that.
I know you're not fine with that, but I believe in people's right to
Come
have.
on, Robbie. If you know that if someone is voting for Trump, they are not all there. They're not the sharpest tool in the shed. I
Okay,
mean,
I don't believe that though. Even if even let's say, I mean, you're on a hardcore side of this, but let's say, even if I disagree with them, if I did, right? Even if I did disagree with them, my point is that people have a right in this country to vote for who they want to vote for. That is a part of being an American. That is not a part of
if
other countries' tenets, structures, and the way that they have things. There's
but if
certain
this was a
departments
true democracy, the two candidates that are running right now would actually not be running. If this was a true democracy, this whole country is a farce. You know that.
Okay, that's another episode.
I'm not going down a
My
tangent.
point
Just
is
don't say.
my point is that I felt like they were categorizing this as it was just only like a conservative movement
Hmm.
and that only conservatives could kind of get around that. And that part I didn't like because I felt like that was leaving other people
Yeah.
out who believe what they're saying, but may not subscribe to their political belief. Like,
Yeah.
why do we have to pick and choose like that? I don't necessarily agree with that. It is a they said it's for everyone, but they're very clear about the conservative piece of it
Hmm.
for them. And maybe I was just looking at that a little bit too much, but that was the only part that I had a little bit of difficulty with because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that would subscribe to everything that they're saying, but they might not necessarily agree with them politically. And my question would
Right.
be to them, do you have space for people who don't believe you, or I should say, agree with you politically, but think of that what you're saying from a health perspective is on point. And
Hmm.
I just wish that we would get back to where fundamentally, because I think that fundamentally, except for you who doesn't like humans, but fundamentally, people have a lot of things more in common than they don't. Um,
Robbie, Robbie, Robbie,
I
Robbie.
just think there's like so much dissension because of phones and all this. Okay,
I think
on. Can we move on to
people.
AI? It's
Listen,
38 minutes. We gotta
this
go.
goes back very
We gotta
quick.
keep moving.
This
Okay,
this
quick.
goes back to the fact that we are
Give
animals.
the
At
word.
the at the core, we are animals. We fight for any little thing. We fight for absolutely anything. We are more inclined to find differences than commonality. That's what we do. We're animals, and that's why I hate human beings.
So, what do you think about
I think
Elon?
we are the worst of the worst species on Earth.
So, what do you think about Elon Musk's new robots?
I think Elon Musk, to start with, I think Elon Musk is nuts and he needs to go away.
Okay, even if you believe that, I'm not going there. What do
I
you think about his robots? Like, can we talk about the AI robots for a minute, please? Like,
Sure.
for real, for real. What do you think about it? What do you think?
I think it's a great. I think the idea, the evolution. It's. I think it's a good breakthrough point, right? But I don't think he has the ability mentally to take it anywhere. I think he's very motivating to get the actual intelligent people out there to develop AI into a whole other realm, and I think it's good. It's a good thing, but uh, you know, I just I don't I'm not a fan of Elon.
Okay, you're not a fan of Elon, but again, the robots. Did you see them? They
Yeah,
were like moving and
yeah,
the whole
yeah,
thing and the
yeah. I you know I so I don't think they're going to the development. It's not going to be what are they going to what is the eventual development of these robots, like what are they going to be? I don't think he has the ability to take it far enough, but I think he's going to motivate people, the actual intelligent people, to take it to another level. I think it's yeah, let's that's what I think.
would you buy one if you could pay $30,000 for a robot to help you around the house, do your chores, get you drinks, all that
I
good stuff? Would you get one? First of
I
all, obviously this is for people who are, at another level.
I would
You would. So you
I
would get
would once it gets to that point, yeah. But like I said, Elon's just he's on a whole. He's too busy doing these things to try to orchestrate political preferences, and this is he's not doing these things from an altruistic point, from an altruistic reasoning,
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I just when I was looking at the robots, right, and they said the robots can clean for you and the robots can take care of your kids and the robots can be a teacher. Immediately I started thinking about people's jobs. Like I started thinking about all the people that do those things and what's going to happen to them if
Well,
they grew to like how fast is this going to grow and what does that mean for people who do these things in houses where people are being paid on an ongoing basis, right? For the houses that can afford the $30,000, those are the same people who can afford the nannies, the housekeepers, and all of that. So what happens to those
this
people?
is
That's the that was I'm just telling you what I was thinking. When we talk about the
yeah,
AI and the technology and how it affects everyday people, I think
yeah.
about what happens to those people.
Well, this is evolution of technology, right? I mean, we have to go forward so we can become a more efficient civilization. We have to. We cannot stunt our growth and development because of our fear that we're going to put people out of jobs. Because as technology develops, the jobs will evolve as well. They'll change. They'll evolve. The jobs will then be circling around the evolution of the technology, right? So it's not, yes, those jobs that we have now are going to, become outdated. They're going to be replaced with other kinds of jobs. And is it going to cause trouble for people that don't have the skills to take on those jobs? Yes. But these are, unfortunately, the growing pains, right? People are going, as whenever there's growth in technology, there is there are growing pains. Now again, what is the reasoning? There, like I said earlier, Elon has his own reasoning for doing things. What is he trying to do? What is he? He's got all sorts of other motivations. That's why I don't like him, and I don't think he has the ability himself to, take it to the next level.
So, do you feel like the motivation of these robots are not intended for good because
I,
it's coming from
be,
him?
yes, exactly.
But you have no proof of this. This is just what you think.
That's correct. Yes.
I just
just, just,
just
just
wanted to
knowing, just knowing Elon for what he is.
Okay. Um. So let's talk about some things that have happened. I think you want to talk about some other things in AI, like
Yeah,
any.
one thing I just want to talk about is I don't know if our audience has seen, but there are pictures swirling around, and when I say swirling, that's a little pun because there are AI generated pictures swirling around of the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, and again, everything in this country everything in this world has become so hyper focused on trying to manipulate politics. It's just crazy, right? So
Mhm.
there are people out there. I don't know why people would try to manipulate images and create fake images of little kids that are drowning or whatever all alone, and they're doing this to sway the election, right? So just be wary of what's out there. There's so much garbage out there. Even you know it's just really difficult to decide what you should believe or not. So just my advice to all of our listeners is be careful in what you believe. Don't believe, there are so many fake news websites actually out there, so there don't believe things that you see on the so-called news just because you see it online. It doesn't mean it's real. There's all sorts of people trying to take advantage of your you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really good point. And I do think, honestly, for people who are creating fake AI pictures of a hurricane with kids and utilizing that for political gains, that's disgusting. I mean, people really lost a lot in Helene and also too in Milton. And I mean, when I think of like what is happening in Asheville, North Carolina, I mean, I had you know, people I know who have been impacted, maybe not super close to me, but know of. I mean, these are people's livelihoods. And I feel like because of the way we ingest information now, there's not like a one sort of touch point. Even the devastation of some of these things, unless it's in your algorithm, like you're not going to see it the way you would and how we saw the coverage of
Yeah.
Katrina, right? Where everyone saw it, where it's like this one
Mhm.
big thing. And I just am, I have given, it's small, but I've given towards storm help and helping people because it's just, to me, I can't, the devastation is unfathomable. But I also think it's clear that there's global warming.
Let me ask you something. Um, eh, Not to steer us in a whole other direction, but
That's okay. Let's go because we're at 47. So
yeah,
it's a long one, audience. It's a long one. Hang in there. We're almost done.
when I'm donating money to a cause, I do think about, well, would these people help me if I was in a situation? Are these people racist? Are they, you know, these things cross my mind, and I think it's a very natural thing for people to think about, unless you're Robbie, who doesn't think about such things and is good, pure-hearted. But all these things cross my mind. I think, do I want to help these people? Do would they are they good to my people? Would they be good to me if they met me?
Um, I just, and this is where we are different, and
Yeah.
it's probably totally because of my faith and my belief, is that's not what drives me when I see that and when I understand. that people have lost something. I'm not driven by to help someone on I'm going to help this person because I think they're going to help me.
Not going to help, but would they be accepting of a person of my color or my religion? Or would they hate me if they met me because
That
of
you
my
were
color or my religion,
because you're an Indian atheist?
for example?
For example, you've told people on here that you're atheist at the beginning of the show, and you've talked about on other episodes that you're Indian. So I don't
Yeah.
feel like that's
Of course, for example, or anything else, if you are, any other color, religion, nationality, So it does cross my mind. If I were to meet this person that's in trouble, if for whatever disaster, whatever is going on, if they were to meet me in person, would they be kind and accepting to me?
well. Here's my view on that. I think that it's twofold. So one, I think 98% of the people, independent of their viewpoint, if they were devastated, like some of the devastation of these areas are, would be in that moment, even if they wouldn't be in another moment when they were, in a good place. There's always going to be somebody who just doesn't care, right?
Mm.
But then I think, and this again comes back to me, and you disagree. We're going to have a hard disagreement on this. What's the right thing to do? And from my perspective, I would still help. That's not me helping, is not based on what's in that person's mind about me because I can't control that. And I can't control what someone thinks of me. I can only do my best to show who I am and the character and the integrity and the kindness that I want to show to people. And I'm not saying I've always been like that. I'm not saying that I'm some self-righteous person because I cuss. I've done things. I haven't always been nice to people. I mean, like I'm not sitting up here professing to be perfect. I want to be very clear on that. But I think that I have tried to and I continue to grow in the sense of seeing someone seeing the type of devastation, understanding that there are vehicles to help people. Yeah, I would want someone to help me if I was in that circumstance. But if I'm helping people who I know as a group, some would help and some wouldn't, I'm still helping people in need. And I
Yeah.
think that's where it comes from for me. For me.
Hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, I agree. Did I say that again? I don't know what to do with myself.
Okay, let's go on to the last conversation here. So some events. I think you wanted to talk about. You had some things you want to talk about first, and
Well, yeah, since
name of
we're
events, stuff with names. We're going to talk about Helene. So what were you going to say, Stephen?
actually, well, I mean, if we're out of time right now, I can, we can talk about it next
No, no,
time.
no. Let's just go to 60. What were you going to say?
Well, now that we're on the topic of God and, did we talk about God? Yes, I believe we did. Atheism, God, whatever. Um, I was watching this, is kind of, a combination of different things we've been talking about: politics, celebrity. I was watching one of my favorites, Bill Maher,
Hmm.
yesterday, and he really is one of my favorites on TV, because he just is so logical, and I love it. And he is an atheist. To my shock, last night on his show, he was talking at the end of his show. He was criticizing, a personality, a new singer that's come about, and he was talking about how she doesn't understand that, uh, the people that now live in the region of Israel belong there. It's their land, and you know he is not happy about the fact that, um, people are referring to them as colonizers, right? And he said that, you know, this is very different from when the Spaniards went and colonized the Americas. The Jews have had a long history in Israel, and so they are just claiming their land, and they deserve that. They have a right to that. And what he did there was muddle religion and region again. This is a common theme I see so many people doing, right? The Jews that are currently occupying Israel are not the original Israelites. They are Jewish, they belong to the same religion, but they are not from that region.
Okay. All right.
So,
And what is it that bothered you? I guess I'm trying to understand what
what bothers me
mix
is that,
of the religion and the actual on the ground conversation of who owns what, like whose
yeah,
land.
the occupiers of Israel are Europeans mostly, European Jews. They are not Israelites. They are the same religion of the historical Israelites, right? But they are not the same from actually from that region. It's very much like saying, if you had uh, a bunch of white Americans convert to Islam and then decide one day that uh, that the Pakistan is their land, and then they go and occupy Pakistan. Right now, does that make sense? That doesn't seem to make sense.
I think that that's an excellent way for us to end because it gives our audience something to think about.
I I agree, and we can expand on that next time.
We can, everyone. So thank you for listening to another episode of Miscellaneous Candor. Frank, honest, and otherwise outspoken. I'm Robbie.
And I'm Steven.
Look at him, he did it! Everybody did it this time!
You're
Yes, for Robbie and Steven. What were you gonna say, Steven?
I was gonna say thank you, everyone, for another wonderful episode. Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. We'll see you next week.